The accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba presents the 24th College Football Hall of Fame season of Fighting Irish Preview. And now, the Banditos' fresh-made daily kickoff with your host, Phil Houck.
Since Lou Holtz rode off into the sunset in 1996, Notre Dame has struggled to return to college football's club elite. Bad seasons, okay seasons, pretty good seasons, and some really good seasons have piled up. But none of them have been really elite seasons. And along the way, there have been benchmark games. The 2007 Sugar Bowl, the 2012 BCS Championship, and the 2018 CFP semifinal were all such games. And the Irish lost them all by an average of 27.2 points. The message was clear. Nice season, Notre Dame, but you're not yet a member of Club Elite. But I thought the Irish were making progress because by 2018, with my eyes, I was seeing bigger, stronger, faster athleticism on the field. And after that season and another year of recruiting such talent, combined with Brian Kelly's new post-2016 player-friendly coaching style and another year in the weight room with Matt Balis, the Irish faced another benchmark game. In Game 3 of 2019 at number 3 Georgia, out of the gate, the Irish played swarming and disruptive defense and held a lead into the third quarter. Whoa! The Irish were passing the eyeball test. That day, Ian Book and company got themselves into a position to tie or win the game with a drive in the last 2 minutes. Alas, it was a bridge too far, and the bid to enter Club Elite ended on the Georgia 38-yard line, and the clock ran out. And that brings us to the Clemson game, November 7th, 2020. For months, Irish fans had the date circled. For weeks, Brian Kelly had publicly spoke of it. And last Saturday, when Ian Book and company were faced with a 2-minute drill to get the Irish to overtime, they nailed it like an elite team. And in overtime, the Irish answered Clemson's quick score with a score of their own, just like an elite team. And after scoring first in the second overtime, the Irish defense slammed the door on Clemson, just like an elite team. Final score, Indy 47, Clemson 40. Welcome, Notre Dame football, to Club Elite. Banditos with 3 Fort Wayne locations, Waynedale, Georgetown, and Glenbrook Commons. Banditos is fresh made daily. Now, stay tuned for Fighting Irish Insight from America's foremost authority on Notre Dame football, Tim Priester, senior editor of IrishIllustrated.com. After these words from Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, Shear McCulloch Auctioneers, and Flight by Yingling. Only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories. Raise the bar. This is Fighting Irish Preview.
The University of Notre Dame exemplifies dedication to hard work, integrity, and personal values, which result in success in the classroom and on the football field. The professionals at Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like Notre Dame, know the same dedication, and their experience and expertise provide peace of mind for you and your business. Tax planning, tax compliance, auditing, business valuation, and estate planning, the full-service accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like the Irish, has what it takes to help you achieve success. Located in Fort Wayne near Jefferson Point, Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba proudly supports Notre Dame football and congratulates all those who are a part of the greatest tradition in all of sports. Go Irish!
This is Art Salzberg. I don't endorse everybody, but I found a company that I think provides a great service. The company is Shear McCulloch, and what they do is targeted specifically for seniors, people who may be thinking about downsizing and are overwhelmed by the thought of what it's going to take. Shear McCulloch will pack you up, move you, and then sell your house and everything that's left. Now that's the most comprehensive relocation service anywhere, and what I call in sports terms covering all the bases. Shear McCulloch uses an international auction platform to make sure your possessions are seen by the right buyers. They're looking to get top dollar from people who have an interest in the special treasures you've collected over the years. Shear McCulloch is A+ Best rated by the Better Business Bureau and highly recommended by leading retirement communities and law firms. If Sharon and I decide to make a change in lifestyle, we'll be calling Shearer McCulloch at 441-8636. That's 441-8636. We trust them, and we know they'll make things easy and profitable.
Introducing Flight by Yuengling, the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yuengling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yuengling. Now available wherever beer is sold. PG Yuengling and Son Incorporated. Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
Tim Priester, when Kyron Williams went 65 yards on the second play, actually the first real play because the first one was a penalty of the game, did you flash back to Eric Pennick going 85 yards against USC in 1973? Because I did. Will the play be remembered as big as that one?
Yeah, but I looked at it differently because that came late in the game. That was the decisive run by Pennick. This one, I knew we had a long way to go with the game, so I didn't feel quite as positive about that. But it was a great start, and Notre Dame really from start to finish, I thought they were the better team on the defensive line, the better team on the offensive line. They won the turnover battle, they won third down, and they won special teams. That's how good Clemson is, because it takes all of that to squeak out a win in double overtime. But I thought Notre Dame played extremely well, had a gap there where they couldn't do as much as they wanted to offensively. But I thought Notre Dame was a better team, and they deserved to win the game.
Well, like the Pennick play, that's a play that I think will be watched over and over again. And you're right. It kind of depends on where Notre Dame goes from here, but I think it's one that's going to be remembered for quite some time. What a way to start the game. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, no one came up bigger in this game, of course, than Ian Book. Signature game for Ian Book. 22 of 39, 310 yards, another 68 running. He made clutch plays all night, one big mistake play to go with that, but far outweighed by the good play. Was this his best game? And considering he's 27-3 as a starter, where does he stand among the great quarterbacks of the last 50 years or so?
Well, it was definitely his best game. I don't think anything really comes close just because of the magnitude of it. As far as where, and I want to say that raises the bar for how he has to play now for the balance of his career. As far as where he stands among the greats, I just think, Phil, that story is still yet to be written. He's got to take them to the playoffs. And they're in a pretty good position to do that, certainly now, if they can just hold serve through the rest of the regular season. But, he still has a lot to prove to who determines that. I think he's got a lot to prove to Notre Dame fans. But that was an absolute necessary step for him to be considered among the greats. And, your record as a starting quarterback counts for a lot, especially now that they beat Clemson.
Well, championships count for even more. So he's not quite on Mount Rushmore yet, but he could get there. And of course, we had talked for weeks leading up to this game. The receiving core needed to step up if the Irish were going to have success against Clemson. Javon McKinley, 5 for 102, including a diving 45-yarder. What flipped the switch with this young man? And, a few more games left in his career, although he may come back, who knows. How good can he be? Because having a big body like that out there, I like players like that.
To be very honest, Phil, I'm not really sure what did flip the switch. I mean, he kind of, I don't want to say went through the motions early in his career, but he wasn't making an impact. He wasn't impressing the coaching staff. And somewhere along the line, he wanted to be great. And I don't know that physically he has all the tools of, a lot of the wide receivers that we're talking about with all-time Irish heroes this season. But, he certainly has emerged as like the diving 45-yarder that I thought they were going to overturn. He wouldn't have made a play like that early in his career. He wasn't in a position to do it because they weren't putting him on the field. But he's become a big play receiver now for them, and there's no reason why he can't be the back shoulder guy. Still has to prove himself in the red zone like all of Notre Dame's wideouts. But he has really become, when you do that against Florida State's cornerbacks and Clemson's cornerbacks, you're arriving. He's definitely arriving.
Yeah, and that back shoulder thing can be a huge weapon moving forward. Now, another wide receiver guy who I really like, and I've been kind of high on him for a while, and I think you have too, and that's Avery Davis. Caught the two biggest passes of his career in the game-tying drive. Tim, Avery Davis has great speed and athleticism. Can he become the downfield threat that the Irish have been looking for?
Well, he's more of a slot receiver, so they don't run those guys deep often, although he certainly did in the end of the regulation and came up with a huge play. That was throughout the pandemic and all the stories that we were creating when we had no spring practice. Avery Davis was our offensive wild card. And the reason I felt that way was because he's stronger than Lawrence Keys, the other slot receiver, and Keys has had some other physical issues. But I thought Davis would emerge just because of the strength, and he was older and more mature. And boy, did they needed that big play at the end of the game. Who's expecting a 53-yard completion in the final minutes of regulation? You just figure that Clemson's not going to give up a big play like that. But they were missing three of their starting defensive backs at that point. So they were vulnerable. Ian Book hit them, and Avery Davis got open for a huge play.
And I might add that you predicted him last week as the Aspen Mortgage key player of the game in advance. So you nailed that one. Now, Tim.
Well, the matchup was right, Phil. Yeah. Him against safety was a mismatch, and they finally made it work.
Yeah, he made it work. Now, Tim, the offensive line, I mean, you talk about physicality. I mean, it's been on both sides of the ball, but let's talk about the offensive line. Clearly won the battle in the trenches with Clemson. And take those guys one at a time. Start with Eichenberg, work to your right, and just give me a couple of words about each and what their prospects would be on the next level. Start with Liam Eichenberg.
Well, Eichenberg is absolutely a potential first-round draft choice as a left tackle. He continues to get better and better. Aaron Banks, I think, is playing his best football this year. He has another year of eligibility. Maybe they can entice him with the left tackle spot in 2021. Jarrett Patterson has gotten much stronger, has gotten much better, is now pushing people around, and I think in a lot of respects has become a somewhat of a dominant center. Tommy Kramer, again, playing his best football, without a doubt, the biggest dude on that offensive line in terms of height and weight. And Robert Haynes is just more of a technician and the leader of the group.
Well, and just add the blocking of those tight ends and Kyron Williams in pass protection, picking up those blitzes, and the blocking has just been tremendous by the offense. All right, defensive effort. The Irish did, in fact, give up 40 points, but there was a lot to like about this defensive effort. Dalen Hayes is playing big, had the big sack in overtime. I came out of my seat. Drew White played terrific. Owusu Koromoa, the leading tackler, the guy had a season, 2 forced fumbles, 9 tackles, the return for the TD, just tremendous. Named the National Defensive Player of the Week. And Travis Etienne was held to 28 yards on 18 carries. But let's focus on the play of the corners, because that play was a little uneven. Nick McLeod, freshman Clarence Lewis, and Tariq Bracy. Bracy in particular there were some glitches in his game. Where do the Irish stand at cornerback?
It's a little precarious. You really only have 3 options right now. It's McLeod, Lewis, and Bracy. Bracy will bounce back. You're on an island as a corner, and he had a bad game, and it went with Lewis at that point. Etienne, 18 carries, 28 yards. Just a phenomenal performance by Notre Dame's defense. And I don't believe that you mentioned a guy that, in addition to Ian Book and Javon McKinley raising the bar that they now have to play up to, Shane Simon, it's not even close. That was such his best game. Nothing else comes close to that. He's now raised the bar, and not only in his performance, I thought his body language, which as a former coach, I put a lot of value in body language. His body language was so good. and so confident in that game. Hopefully those are three guys that have completely raised the bar of their play moving forward.
Well, last week we kind of dissed Shane Simon a little bit on this show, if you recall. At least I did, because I was calling for Jack Kaiser to get more play because Simon wasn't doing his job. I think he heard our show because he was just terrific. Now, Tim, after the 2016, we all know the story. Brian Kelly made wholesale changes, including the revamp of his strength and conditioning program, hiring Matt Balis to run it, and it seems to have paid enormous dividends. How big of a factor has that strength and conditioning program been in Notre Dame's success? I know recruiting plays into it, but we're just have become more physical than everybody else.
Yeah, and you're like me, Phil, and we're from the same generation. We love that physicality and having an offense that's predicated upon the running game, and that's what they have now. Now you're going to lose guys from that offensive line, so next year it's not going to be as dominant. But man, oh man, it's so great to see Notre Dame. They out physical Clemson. Who would have thought that was possible 2 years ago? Now Clemson's in a little bit of a transition. Their offensive line is a little bit more finesse and more of a pass blocking offensive line. And their defensive line is young and banged up. But Notre Dame was the dominant physical team. Matt Balis, the strength and conditioning coach, is the key behind this. It's been something that has been improving year after year, and it's now reaching a peak with that veteran offensive line with 140-odd combined starts now.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect storm, but Matt Balis certainly has played into it. I want what he's given, no doubt about it. Another area is the mental performance training. Tim, can you comment on just what an impact that is? Dr. Amber Selking, I believe is her name, who's consulting with the players constantly. That was something else Brian Kelly implemented, and it does seem that in the last couple of years, the attitude has just been outstanding on this team.
Well, it's the old Eric Parsegian phrase, no breaking point, and that's what they've learned to have. And Dr. Amber Selking has done a tremendous job with the players, but she's done a great job with Brian Kelly as well. He consults with her. She's around a lot of his speeches to the team, and she knows the key points and the things that athletes respond to. So she's a tremendous sounding board for Brian Kelly as well as the players. And they don't have a breaking point because they just don't allow themselves to get too high and too low with successes and failures. So I think it's all part of the traits that Brian Kelly talks about. And I think it's really at the very foundation of everything that they've done since the start of the 2017 season. Yeah,
a lot of great things were done after 2016. Sometimes it takes a near disaster to create that sort of change. One quick hit, see if you can answer this in about 10 seconds. How good is this Notre Dame team? Can they win a national championship?
With the physicality that they showed on Saturday, I now believe they're capable of doing that, as long as Ian Book and a couple other guys continue to play to that level.
All right, that sounds good. That's what we're here for. Thanks, Tim. Coming up, it's the all-time Irish hero, key to an Irish victory, injury report, and the world-famous Irish Illustrated prediction. And during the break, it's the Fighting Irish Fact of the Week, brought to you by Ron Wise and the Wise Insurance Agency. This is the 348th edition of Fighting Irish Preview.
Shine a little light into my room. Oh, I'm sure the morning sun can eliminate my gloom. If it shine a little light into my room, all I want is some sunshine, sunshine, shining through these windows of mine. And I want it to be easy, easy. Your clear choice is Bushy.
Treat each house as if it was your own. Our mission statement at Bushy's Windows, Doors, and Remodeling. Hi, I'm Jim Bushy. At Bushy's, we're proud of our home improvement products that we offer, and we are even more proud of the award-winning installers who will come to your home. Right now, take advantage of our 12-month 0% interest payment plan, and estimates are always free. So call Bushy's at 456-1247, stop into our showroom, or check out bushysfw.com. Bushy's Windows, Doors, and Remodeling. your clear choice.
Your clear choice is Bushy's. Your clear choice is Bushy's.
The Fighting Irish Fact of the Week is brought to you by our friends at the Wise Insurance Agency. Of the 5 longest regular season streaks in college football history, Notre Dame has ended 3 of them. Oklahoma 45 games, 1957. Miami 36 games, 1988. And Clemson 36 games last Saturday. Call Ron Wise at the Wise Insurance Agency or go to thewiseinsuranceagency.com and get an auto or home quote in less than 5 minutes.
Introducing Flight by Yuengling, the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yuengling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yuengling, now available wherever beer is sold. DG Yuengling & Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
This is Fighting Irish Preview. The number 2 ranked Irish are at Boston College this week. TV coverage on ABC starts at 3:30 p.m. South Bend time. And it's now time for the all-time Irish hero. Brought to you by the Marina at Lake Gage. Chris Craft, Mastercraft, and Premier Pontoons. We share your boating passion. This week we continue our series on the great pass receivers of the Brian Kelly years. When Equanimeous St. Brown, a 6'5", 200-pound, 4-star receiver out of Anaheim, California, committed to the Irish in 2015, I looked at his name and said out loud, oh no, another name to figure out how to pronounce. Well, maybe he won't pan out and I won't have to. Well, an Irish Illustrated colleague, not you, Tim Priester, somebody else, heard me say that and suggested I would need to get to work on it because St. Brown was going to have an impact, and he did. St. Brown, it would seem, has athletics in his genes. Among his family of 2 brothers, one currently plays at Stanford and another at USC, and his father, John, is a former Mr. Universe bodybuilder who has groomed all of his sons to be athletes. Equanimeous played little his freshman year, but burst onto the scene in 2016 as a sophomore with a tremendous season. Teaming up with Deshaun Kaiser, he grabbed 58 passes for 961 yards and 9 touchdowns, and he was named the team's outstanding offensive player. Against Texas in the season opener, he caught 2 TDs, including a spectacular cartwheel into the end zone from 30 yards out. He followed that up with 33 catches, good for another 515 yards and 4 TDs in 2017, and once again was the team's leading receiver. Tim, St. Brown was a rare combination of size, speed, and leaping ability.
That he was, and Equanimeous was always easier to say than Uiagalelei. But
good point.
He was. Well, he was involved in the block punt against USC his freshman year that went for a touchdown at home. But, yeah, he really arrived in 2016, one of the few bright spots of a season with the 58 catches and 9 touchdowns. And then dipped down a little bit in 2017 before he went to the NFL. But long and athletic, and without a doubt, that Texas performance, that debut performance is what I think most Notre Dame fans will always remember him by.
Yeah, a couple of things about St. Brown. Fluent in French, German, and English, of course. His mother is a German citizen, and St. Brown has dual citizenship. And in 2017, he was a 6th-round draft pick of the Green Bay Packers, a team with which he is now making his mark. Equanimeous St. Brown, another Marina at Lake Gage, all-time Irish hero. The Marina at Lake Gage, we love boats. And it's now time for the Aspen Mortgage Key to an Irish victory. Tim, after a 6-7 campaign a year ago, BC cut loose of Steve Addazio and brought in Ohio State defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. Hafley has the Eagles this year at 5-3. They've lost to number 12 North Carolina, number 23 Virginia Tech, and 2 weeks ago in a close one to Clemson. Last week, they outlasted Syracuse 16-13. The big story here, of course, is their transfer quarterback, Phil Jurkovec. A highly regarded high school prospect, Jurkovec struggled to find playing time at ND, and when Ian Book decided to come back for a 5th year, he moved on to Boston College. He quickly has earned a starting job, and through 8 games is completing 62% of his passes, averages 260 yards per game throwing it, and has thrown 15 TDs and 4 interceptions. He's an effective runner, but he has taken a lot of sacks, while Jurkovec has been effectively passing, especially to his top receiver, Zay Flowers, who has caught 38, good for 600 yards and 6 TDs. The running game has struggled, 110th out of 117 nationally, good for just 106 yards per game. BC's pro-style attack is 85th in the country in scoring and 91st in total offense. After a tough 2019 on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles are improved to 38th in the nation in points allowed at 24.6 per game and in total defense at 373 yards, but they are better at pass defense than against the run. Key players include linebacker Max Richardson, who leads the team in tackles, defensive end Maximilian Roberts, who is a disruptive player with 4.5 sacks, and junior cornerback Brandon Sebastian, who leads a deep and talented secondary. BC has forced a lot of turnovers, having picked off 7 passes and picked up 7 fumbles. Overall, the Eagles are one of the worst teams in the nation when it comes to committing penalties, averaging 74.5 negative yards per game. And at 5-3, the Eagles cannot be ignored. And they do have a history of playing spoiler to the Irish. And they took the Clemson to the mat 2 weeks ago. Tim Priester, what is the Aspen Mortgage key to an Irish victory?
Well, Phil, Notre Dame clearly has an advantage running the ball and stopping the run in this game. So it'd be easy for me to say that. But I'm going to point to the old phrase of pack your defense and special teams, because you can go on the road and offensively leave some points on the field, as we say, and Notre Dame has done that. But if Notre Dame plays a level of defense that they're accustomed to, they keep Phil Jurkovec in the pocket. And I think Notre Dame has a special teams advantage as well. Pack your defense and your special teams, and you'll move to 8-0 and stay number 2 in the country.
All right. When you're traveling, bring along your defense and special teams. And if the Irish perform to their standards, they'll be just fine. That is Tim Priester's Aspen Mortgage key to an Irish victory. And Tim Priester, who is this week's Aspen Mortgage key player for the Irish?
Well, I pick an offensive player every week, Phil. We were, I guess I got a little lucky with Avery Davis last week. And Javon McKinley, I think, has a chance to have a good game here, but he's coming out of concussion protocol. I think it's back to Ben Skowronek. I think Ben Skowronek has a big game offensively. And then defensively, Kyle Hamilton doesn't have an interception yet. He gets his first one this weekend against his old teammate, Phil Jurkovec.
All right, Kyle Hamilton is going to have a game against his old teammate. That is your Aspen Mortgage key player this week. And also Ben Skowronek. Aspen Mortgage, for all your mortgage needs, call 486-LOAN. And it's now time for the injury report, brought to you by Indiana Physical Therapy. Your choice for physical therapy now at 20 Indiana locations. Tim, how do the Irish stand health-wise going in to the BC game?
We'll see about Javon McKinley. He didn't take contact this week, but he's fully cleared, so he should be back in the running. But you know how those things can go. It might take another week for him to be back to the level that he was against Clemson. Braden Lenzy is definitely going to need another week. He will not play this weekend. They'll have the bye week, and he'll be back in action against North Carolina.
Okay, both guys who are limited are receivers, but the receiving corps coming around nonetheless. Thanks, Tim, and that is the Indiana Physical Therapy Injury Report, and it's now time for the world-famous Irish Illustrated prediction brought to you by IrishIllustrated.com. Tim Priester, Vegas says the Irish by 13.5. What does America's foremost authority say?
I see this as another low-scoring game, which is the direction that last weekend's game was going until it went into overtime. I can just see the offense not just being quite up to par. I just got to see Ian Book stack some games together to believe that we're going to see the same Ian Book that we saw last week. But Boston College is going to have a very difficult time scoring. And it's just a matter of how deep into the 30s will Notre Dame go. I'm going to go with Notre Dame 35, Boston College 13.
Notre Dame 35, Boston College 13. That is Tim Priester's world-famous Irish Illustrator prediction. Well, Tim, my ruse worked last week because I really thought that Notre Dame would beat Clemson, but I went ahead and predicted, of course, that Clemson would win, so therefore using reverse psychology, it worked out. So this week, I'm back to where I normally am, and I'm really close to you. Jeff Hafley's defensive background as a coach seems to have had a positive influence on one side of the ball. That's the defensive side, at least against the pass. And Phil Jurkovec on the other side has had a positive influence. But the lack of a running game is just so obvious of a factor that that's going to give Clark Lee a real good opportunity to scheme against these guys. They're going to hold the points down. Notre Dame 37, Boston College 10. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Phil.
Go Irish, and thanks for listening to Fighting Irish Preview. Special thanks to Jim Shovelin, Art Salzberg, and studio producer Adam Schenkel. Fighting Irish Preview is the copyrighted property of Judge Phil Productions.
Podcasts by Federated Media. Podcasts by Federated Media.